And we are live. Welcome, everyone, to the Connected for Real podcast. I'm Rebbetzin Bat-Chen Grossman, and today with me is Renee. Please
Hello.
introduce yourself, and then we'll get into organizing and marriage.
Wonderful. I'm Renee Allen. I also have a podcast for women with ADHD called Inspiring Women with ADHD. And I've been married 37 years, have 6 children, but none of them are children anymore, and 7 grandchildren. So
Wow,
mothering is part of my life. So is marriage. And
that's
and I'm
amazing.
just branching out on business on my own. I've been teaching yoga for about 15 years, but this is something that I wanted to do separate, have more of an online presence.
That's amazing. So let's talk about organizing and marriage because this is a big topic.
It sure is. So
Yeah.
I was thinking about it, and I know some people go into marriage very much defining what they will do and how they do it. And some people just see what group they fall into. That's what my husband and I did. We got married, we started living in the same home. And he would say, "I really like a clean car." And he would say, "I like to deep clean and I'd like to organize." And we'd find our things that we loved to do in keeping our home or cars clean. And over time, you'd see that there were differences and there were similarities. And sometimes that's okay. And sometimes you have to work through or change what your definition of organized is to work together. But I just thought that it's been interesting to watch in different marriages because some of them are very open at the beginning to set up what is our system. And
Right.
we didn't, but your system can change over the
Right.
years when you have children, when you move, when you have life changes, health changes, whatever. So yeah, it's really
Yeah.
fascinating to think about.
I don't know if we ever sat down and created systems or thought about our styles or anything. It just once we started bumping into things, then we
Yeah.
had to figure them out.
Mhm.
And yeah, wow.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The one that I ran into that was so different for us was cars. Because if I'm in my house, need it to have a sense of order so I can function in it. And I also am affected by visual clutter, so that affects my ability to get work done. But if I'm in a car, if I can see out the windshield, I'm fine. And so when we had children, my husband would say, "The car's too messy," or "They shouldn't eat in the car." I thought, "But we're driving around. They need to eat in the car," that kind of thing. I thought as long as everything's back there, I'll clean it out every once in a while. But I don't mind it because I'm not aware of it. And it's keeping them happy. And so that was one thing that I wasn't willing to change. But if we were in his car, we would not have food in it to help keep it the way he wanted.
Wow, that's really cool. I can imagine if you had only one car, it would become a real issue.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, and it's actually more that way now because my car broke months ago, and we haven't been able to get it fixed, but we don't have kids in the car as often, and I think that's more understood. But that even bothers me just getting in and the radio's on, and I like to drive without the radio. Every time I get in, I think, "Ugh, can't it just be the way I left it?" But it can't because 2 people are using it. So,
Right.
it's that working together.
Yeah, I think that organizing in marriage hits a couple of years in
Mhm.
when you think you already established something and it still isn't the way you want it. And then you talked about it and you tried, and then, and something just isn't working. And there's always a feeling of like one person is the one who knows and is giving the advice, and the other person is the one that's broken and can't figure it out.
Mhm.
And that makes for a very icky feeling in the marriage.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and also, when you don't have the same system and it's something that you do need to do together, it's not gonna work very well, and I've seen that with children too. Then when I started to realize I'm trying to keep this system of order with the kitchen and the living room, and I'm just fighting them not being part of the system. And I said to my husband one day, "It's like I have a whole bunch of people against me, not that they don't clean sometimes, but I feel like we need to sit down and say, 'This is the big picture I have. Can you help me with that?'" And that could also take place in marriage where I would like this to be this way because I can't function otherwise. And then hopefully they can say they can help you with that, or you work together on what you both could live with.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell me about this organizing specifically for ADHD because a lot of the listeners not necessarily have labeled themselves or want to be diagnosed or, you know, think
Right.
of themselves in such way. But it seems like the skills that are being given to women with ADHD are helpful all around.
Yes,
And
correct.
especially if you're creative and you really just like to do things differently, they're very helpful. So let's get into some of that real
Yeah.
practical stuff.
The the simplifying as much as you can for organization is one of the key things, because the more things that you have to manage or the more steps to any process, it's gonna be harder to function. And I think one thing that's helpful is constantly having a mind of decluttering, of what do I need? What am I managing? What am I putting away that we don't need? Maybe not as many blankets, not as many this when you're doing laundry, and simplifying it as much as you can, because even if you think I don't have a system here with laundry and it's out of control, you really do, but your system is I'm going to do laundry when it's out of control or I'm going or what I used to do with our family is I do the washing and the not even the folding. I do the washing, the drying, and then just throw it in a pile, and then when I had time, I'd fold clothes. And so a lot of times I'd throw a blanket over it. And that was my system. Was it a good system? Maybe it's what helped me at that time with a lot of children, but over time, you have to simplify your system. If that's not working, we really need that space. Can the new system be we have children start doing their laundry, they do their own or, that kind of thing. But anything
Yeah.
that you can simplify or just make it so it's clear in your mind what's going on or how many things that you're working with is better. If you're trying to keep your closets clean, but they're always stuffed, it's going to be a lot harder to keep them clean. Every time you have to put something away and you don't have time and you put it in there, it piles up. And it's not easy to do to get rid of things, but it is super, super helpful.
Yeah. I like what you said. Okay, so let me tell you about my laundry system because I'm really proud of it. I'm really proud.
That's wonderful.
We had a washer dryer stacked and a big mess to the side of it. It was,
Mhm.
the basket that overflowed and everything was all
Yeah,
over the floor and there was nowhere to put anything. And it's like, ugh. And then there was like shelves and we were trying to like stuff stuff and it was just
yeah,
not good.
yeah.
So I dreamt up that I want them to be side by side, but I don't want them to be on the floor. I want them to be eye level. And in
Mhm.
order to turn them on, I'm willing to get on a stool. Like, I
This is the
really
washer
want
and dryer?
yeah, I
Yeah,
want
yeah.
them to be high because
Mhm.
it's just that's how I decided was like,
Yeah.
I need as much space underneath as possible. And then I had, a professional build shelves underneath
Mhm.
the washer and dryer. Well, first he built that, like, holder, like, big,
Yeah, yeah,
strong shelf
right.
for them, but then underneath that, he put 2 shelves, and I have 3 levels of baskets. I went into IKEA, and I got 9 baskets that are matching,
Oh, yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
this makes me so happy,
Oh, yeah,
and they're 3 by 3, right? So there's, like,
yeah.
3 on one shelf, 3 on the next shelf, 3 on the next shelf under that, and then I was talking to an organizer because I wanted to make sure that even though to me this makes sense,
Mhm.
I want to hear from her, what do you suggest and whatever. And the organizer was like, maybe you should label each basket its own person in the family, or maybe you should
Mhm.
make it like this type and that type, and I don't know what. And then she made it so complicated. I was like, listen, lady, two-step chick here. Like
Yeah,
one,
yeah. We need to
two.
make it simpler, I can't do it.
Right. So then I was like, never mind with all of your beautiful, wonderful advice. It's never going to work. This is all going to be clean laundry. And so
Mhm.
in our house, my husband loves to do the laundry.
Mhm.
And then at some point, he'll either move it to the dryer or I'll move it to the dryer and, then sort of rotate. And because we have 8 kids, we're constantly rotating and constantly putting in new lawn. Like there's
Yeah.
never ending loads.
Yeah.
And then they all end up in these baskets. And if somebody doesn't have what they're looking for, they could just go in a basket and like sort of rumble through. That's
Yeah.
fine with me as long as you put the basket back and you don't leave it,
Mhm.
half open. But then twice a week or so, or when it gets
Mhm.
too full, we'll take all the baskets and dump
Mhm.
them on the couch and separate by person, and then each
Mhm.
person gets to put their stuff away, or I put away the stuff for the kids, whatever. And this is working,
Oh,
you
that's
know?
wonderful.
And for a long time, I was like, "Man, this is so complicated. I made such a
Mhm.
weird system, like, who wants to do it this way?" But
Right.
if it's working, don't
Oh,
don't
yeah.
break it.
Oh, yeah, 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 and when we had all 6 kids home, we did something my husband actually came up with it. Our laundry room was small, but he said, "If we buy a big cabinet," it was back when, they had the big TVs, it was an entertainment center, and it had 2 cupboards at the bottom and then a big shelf. So it basically had room for 6 baskets. And I actually just wrote the names of the kids on there because I thought I can take mine away. My husband can put his, and I put their clothes, and they'd either grab things out of them or take them up to their room. But I didn't have as many to sort as you did, so it worked with the 6. But that worked really well because you have to have a place to put them, and they have to be able to find their stuff, and having some in between place between
Right,
dryer and dresser or getting dressed is nice.
right. Yeah.
So it doesn't make a mess.
And I think I went through a bunch of different options and a bunch of different systems before I was able to land on this one,
Mhm.
and I saw a pattern. I really
Mhm.
like having a lot of the same basket, and so, like, I just have all the baskets
Yeah.
lined
Yeah.
up, and after I dump everything, there are, 8 baskets in a row or whatever it is, 9 baskets,
Yeah.
and I just throw, 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 throw.
Yeah.
It's so satisfying, and then
Yeah. Yeah.
also, you start noticing who has more clothes than who, you know?
Yeah. Oh,
Like,
that's true.
the boys have, like, half a basket of, like, barely any clothes, and the girls, like, overflowing, and
Oh,
they're
yeah.
complaining that they have nothing to wear. So,
Yeah.
I just visually, you show this to the kids, and you're
Mhm.
like, "Okay, guys, this has been the laundry of the last couple of days." Like,
Oh,
it's not
that's
even a
great.
full week. It's the
That's
last couple
great.
of days.
That's so great. That's so great, and
Yeah.
even just getting rid of things, I like doing that, whether it's paper bags from the grocery store that I put 4 out and one's for trash, even though if I have a different trash can somewhere else. When the containers that you put your stuff in it look the same, it does feel more, "Okay, this is relaxing. I can do this because it makes sense in your mind instead of, "And what was that box for? Or what was I gonna do with that?"
Right, and
Getting rid
my
of things.
mother writes on the bags, like, if she
Mhm.
makes a bag for giveaway, she will write on it "giveaway" so she doesn't have to remind herself what's in the bag,
Yeah, yeah.
like, she's already assuming that she's going to forget. So,
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah.
it's like, how many times did you go through the same stuff just to make sure that you're not giving away something that you don't wanna give
Oh, yeah.
away?
Oh, yeah. Because if you look at it again, you might decide to keep it. I used to
Exactly.
have a little holding place when my kids were younger, and I would go through and think, "They haven't played with this toy in so long." I'm not gonna ask them about everything I wanna get rid of, but I also don't want to upset them. So we had one of those boxes on top of our van, for trips and things, and so I would take all the bags that I was gonna donate to the thrift store and just put them up there for about a month, and if they didn't ask about it, then I'd take it. There was only one time one of my daughters, "Like that teddy bear," and we actually went to the thrift store looking for it, never found it, but she was so upset
Oh.
with me. It wasn't even one that she played with that much, but, sometimes your system involves your kids and sometimes it doesn't, or you have to find ways to
Yeah.
manage your home for sure.
Yeah, the art projects. So one daughter
Oh, yeah.
just threw out the art project of the little daughter. And it's just makes sense, right? Because the thing is ripping. It's not anywhere. It's just on the
Mhm.
floor. So whatever. And so she just like dumped it into the garbage. And my 6-year-old comes and she sees it. She takes it out and she starts to like, clean it up. And yeah, who put this in the garbage? And I'm like, I have no idea. But honestly, Like, I get why they did it.
Yeah.
And you start to learn that if something matters, then it doesn't belong on the floor and that maybe you
Mhm.
should take care of it.
Yeah, take care of it quickly. I
Yeah.
think my mom used to do things like that. She used to say, "Pick up your things, or if I pick it up, I'll charge you a quarter," back when a quarter was worth a lot more. "I'll charge you a quarter for everything I pick up," and everyone would run and get their things. Like, "This does
Yeah.
matter to me."
It used to work with that first generation of children. I would
Yeah,
say, if I pick it up, I'm giving it away,
yeah.
and they would run and get it. And then one time, with the younger ones, like the middle ones, whatever, there's,
Mhm. The younger batch.
I said that and they didn't pick up. So I gathered all those big blocks, the big Legos, the mega blocks. I gathered them all up and I showed up at my neighbor's house and I said, "Here you go. My kids didn't pick it up. So now it's yours." And my kids threw a fit. "You actually did it?" I'm like, "Yes, yes,
Yeah.
I did because
Yeah.
I am sick of picking them up."
Yeah, yeah, I'm not doing that I'm not gonna just make empty threats.
Yeah,
That's
no,
really
and
great.
and it worked because then, she did the same to me and we kept switching games because at a certain point, your
Yeah,
kids are sick of their own stuff, and when somebody
yeah,
else's game comes in, you're like, "Oh, cool, look at this."
yeah,
So
yeah,
it's good
yeah.
to have a good friend like that.
It is, it is. That's great. So have you done any systems with your kids, like, that you and your husband plan out, "Let's do this, and let's have our kids for cleaning, organizing." We used to have Saturdays be is Saturday your Sabbath or is Sunday your
Yeah,
Sabbath?
yeah, Saturday's my Sabbath.
So that wouldn't be your day that
Um,
you do that.
yeah, so I find it really interesting that people say, "Just have your kids help."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Mhm, right."
Yeah.
Because the truth is, like when they say toilet train your kid, it's really not toilet train your kid, it's toilet train the parent, you know? It's
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
parent has to be on top of them and remind them every so often and make sure
Yeah.
that they're drinking enough so that they need to go and whatever. It's like it's more train the parent. So same thing. I felt like getting my kids to help would take so much out of me to
Mhm.
be consistent and
Yeah.
remind them and follow through and blah, 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 that it just never worked for me. And it created such a icky atmosphere in the house. Like, you're not helping.
Mhm.
You should be helping. This is your job. This is the thing, blah, blah, blah.
Mhm.
And we've done certain systems, like we did, points, and we did, each kid has a chart, and we did a whole chart for all the kids.
Mhm.
And we've tried all these different things.
Oh, you're bringing
And
me down memory lane.
yes, at the end of the day, I'll tell you what works: believing that the kids will eventually do it. I got to a point where I'm like, "You know what, guys? I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm going to expect you to look around and see what needs to be done. And one day you'll be old enough to pitch in and start to help."
Mhm.
And the cool thing is that it worked. So now
Yeah.
that I have an 18-year-old and a 16-year-old and a 14-year-old who actually help,
Yeah.
and people say, "How did you do that? How did you get them to be so helpful?" I have my 18-year-old, when she was 15, out of the blue, started to close shop in the kitchen every single night. Like, she would,
Hmm.
after we went to sleep, clear off all the counters, put away all the dishes,
Wow.
like start the dishwasher. She really, it was like, "Whoa, what just happened?" And it
Mhm.
was this like light bulb moment that she
Yeah.
had when she suddenly realized, "Oh, I don't have to just wait around for it to be done. I can take responsibility." And it wasn't me pushing her to do it and asking her and
Mhm.
nagging and whatever. It was just a moment that she had of like, "Oh, I'm in."
Yeah.
And ever since then, it's just been life changing. But I didn't have any help until she was
Yeah.
14, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's like at one point you think, "Oh, this is never going to end." But then you also realize nagging them isn't helping either.
Mhm.
So my
Mhm.
biggest advice is talk about your kids, even just out loud in front of other people or whatever. I was like, "My kids know to step up and help when they need to." And they look at each other like, "No, we don't." But
Mhm.
I believe it. I believe you
Mhm.
can. I believe you
Yeah.
will. I believe you are that type. You just need to like step into it. Don't worry
Yeah.
about it. I have belief in you. And it's amazing because the same thing happened with the next one who's 16 now. So when she was, I don't know, maybe 13, she
Mhm.
suddenly started doing the dishwasher every day, like
Mm.
emptying. She owned a new job and just decided to do it. Oh, I
Mm.
see here somebody is giving us an amazing
Oh, that's
thing.
my mom. She said my daughter helped, the boys didn't. I have 4 brothers.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Because I was going to say my husband is one of 4 boys,
Oh, okay.
and my mother-in-law, she didn't care that they were boys. She's like, "You guys are gonna have all the skills you need to be
Yeah.
independent and survive." It's like they all cook, they all clean, they all know how to do the laundry.
Yeah.
It's so great, it's so
Yeah.
great.
It's super, super, super helpful. Yeah, I one time I put a note, and it was just on a 3 by 5 card that said, "Please keep the kitchen counters clean," or something, or the sink and kitchen counters clean, you're like, it just as simple as I could. And because I was just frustrated, like, I'm always coming in here, and everything was clean for months. And one day I thought, I don't need this card here anymore. This is amazing. And I was walking away with the card, and one of my boys said, "Oh, good. Do we not have to do that anymore?" And I thought it's funny that the words made him think this is what we need to do, but without it, he thought that I changed my mind or something. I said, "No, I still want you to do it." But maybe it
Did
was
you
just
put back the card? I really hope
yes,
you
like,
did.
yeah, yeah, I did. I put the card back because I thought if that makes a difference to anybody, I'll keep it here forever.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I honestly, now with my 6-year-old, I told her today, I said, "Pick up the spoon and put it in the sink." And she just looks at
Mhm.
me and says, "Nah," and walked away.
Mm.
And I'm just sitting there going, "Oh, what does this mean about me?"
Why does she not wanna say, "Okay, mom?"
Yeah, and you know what? It's it's important to realize, just like pause. What just went through my head is, what does this mean about me? What did
Mhm.
I do wrong? Why am I whatever? And it's like, this means nothing about you. It just
Yeah,
means that she's
yeah.
a 6-year-old and she's going through her own phase of
Mhm.
finding what works, what doesn't, how do
Yeah,
I deal with the
yeah.
world, whatever. Don't let yourself go there because that's
Mhm.
just going to make it worse, not better.
Yeah, "What did I do to cause this?" Or or, "What do I
Yeah.
need to do to change it?" And yeah.
Yeah.
One thing I heard when my kids were younger, it was a mom who had teenagers, my kids were still young, but she said something like she told her kids, "There's 4 of you, and if each of you just do 15 minutes or a half hour of something to make our house look better during the day, then that's 1 or 2 hours that I'm not having to do." And when I realized that and mentioned that to my kids, they started thinking, even if I'm just doing something for 10 minutes or 15 minutes or 20 minutes. And we know even with ourselves, we can start out, it's going to be 10 minutes, but then we spend more time with it. That it made a big difference because they saw that their little bit made a difference, even if they didn't spend a whole hour. I've got homework. I can't do that. It was helpful
Right.
to keep
Yeah.
order in our homes because it can fall apart so fast. It really
Yeah.
can.
So let's connect it back to marriage because
Yeah.
when one spouse comes from a house where the mother was very on top of it and maybe she was more consistent, maybe she had her systems, and maybe she was, more worried about the mess than she was about spending time with the kids, or whatever it is that
Mhm.
is,
Mhm.
different than the other spouse. Sometimes it comes to, why can't you just get your act together?
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
expecting a certain expectation of the home and it's not happening. Something is not
Mhm.
clicking.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I have a friend who said in our house every night, we cleaned the house before we went to bed and woke up to a clean house, and that it was important to my parents to have our house be clean. It's like a temple, it's this wonderful, beautiful place. And his wife said, my parents said the house is just kind of our playground, and we want it to be a place where we're happy and we have fun together. And we're not going to spend too much time doing that because then we can have time to go to the park or we can have time to do these things. And I thought what was helpful is that they talked about it because
Yes.
then that gives the one an opportunity to think, "Oh, you're just not ignoring it, you're actually reading a book," to our daughter, or she's thinking you're not just thinking this has to be so clean because you're crazy. You grew up enjoying a clean home or enjoying a clean floor that mattered to have, the sweeping or the mopping or the vacuuming done. That it definitely happens, but it's workable if you can either work on it together or decide maybe we have enough money, we hire someone to come in and do this, or we buy a vacuum that goes on its own, or some of those things can be helpful just to
I feel
see
like
what can fill in
that
that piece.
vacuum would go crazy. I think of my house and I'm like, if I owned one of those things,
Yeah.
that machine would just stop midway and say, "I am not cleaning until you guys pick up."
That's right, I know. Well, and that's what anytime I haven't done it that much, but anytime I've paid someone to come clean, I think the reason it works is because and I just had at this house, I only had her come clean bathrooms. It was every other week, is you run around the house cleaning so that when she walks into that bathroom, everything else is, cleaner, and so it gets you to work faster before they come and do their half hour, or whatever, it makes a
Right.
it
Yeah.
makes a
I was
difference.
just mentioning to someone that when a cleaner comes, they have no emotional attachment to your stuff.
Mhm, mhm.
So
Yeah.
it doesn't take them as long because they're not sitting there thinking and like, you know, fuming about this one who left his, coat on
Mhm.
the floor and this one. Why can't she just put her stuff away and whatever? It's just like boom, 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 boom. Okay, next.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah, I'll throw this away instead of, "Oh, she might wanna keep it," even though it's just the package that their toy came in, or all those things that we have that slow us down
yes.
and make a difference. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, my husband is more brutal with throwing things away, and I have been known to take things out of the trash. And I think, "I know that's horrible, but I can use that box for something," and something I need to work on to just let that be, but I think I can repurpose this or
Oh,
something like that.
yes. Have you seen that reel where it's like, "I can throw this jar away. There are many jars." But like, "No, no, 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 no," and
Oh,
like
yeah,
you put
yeah,
it back with all the jars.
yeah,
Oh my gosh. My
and then you
husband
spend so much
throws
time washing the jar and thinking, "Do I need to keep this jar?" But
I have so many jars and my husband throws away my jars and then I get really upset and then I
mhm.
start my new collection and then he throws them away. And I explained to him, like, "I really like the jars. I need them." He's like, "But you don't
Yeah,
use them." I'm like, "I do. I just
yeah,
use
yeah,
them
at different
at
times.
different times." I
Yeah,
got into a rhythm with the, smoothies in the summer. I would
yeah,
make, like, a big thing of smoothie, but then because the
mhm,
kids are all at different stages now, they're coming home
mhm.
at different times. So
Oh,
instead
yeah,
of leaving that gigantic smoothie jar in the fridge and then it's, like, harder to clean, I just make it, jar it into different size jars,
oh,
put
yeah,
it
for
in the
them.
fridge, and then they can come and grab it. It's
Mhm.
worked so well this
Yeah,
past
yeah,
summer that now
yeah,
I'm excited about,
yeah.
doing it again.
Yeah, and vertical space in the fridge is good. Have you heard about strawberries in a jar? When you do you have strawberries? You have strawberries where you are. And that when you buy berries, if you take them out of the container and put them in the jar and just rinse them off, and they last probably 5 times as long. And then it's a tall, thin thing. It fits in your fridge. It's easier to find. But once I learned that, it's prevented a lot of throwing away of things that like, "Oh, we didn't eat those fast enough," or whatever.
Yeah.
But
I love
yeah.
your mom. Hi, mom. Aw, I love you. She just helped us out here. It's so cute. She says, "I feel in retrospect, the idea should be that the whole family is responsible for the house, not just mom. The
Mhm,
family is not just there to help mom," which is so
mhm.
true. If we could
Yeah,
just,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
the same with like, "Oh, how can I help you?" It's like, "Help me." Like, how can I help
yeah,
you?
yeah, yeah. But it's kinda like the mom, if she's home more, you've assumed the role of the manager. So if you were at an office and you're the manager of the office, you're still gonna direct it in
Right.
some degree, and for you, that system was, "I'm not gonna keep coming up with systems to get them to do work and hope that it works out, and it has worked out. But they probably learned ways to clean and watched you or, or that kind of thing or had some
Right.
experience with it at some time. Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder, sometimes we're trying so hard to come up with systems and
Mhm.
to figure out how to fix it. How do
Mhm.
I get my act together? How do I pull myself
Mhm.
into shape? When in reality, things are sort of working, and
Mhm.
what you might need to change is just a couple of tweaks. Could
Yeah,
we talk
yeah.
about that? Do you have any practical tools that people can really step
Yeah,
up?
well, what I think is when you're going through your day and something's taking longer, like where you're going in the house to get a blanket or something, and you have people when they come to visit, they sleep in this room, and you start to realize, I keep putting the blankets way up there, bringing them down, bringing them up, whatever your system is, and that's more an occasional thing. But if you have games for your children to play and they're in a closet that's not close to where they play them, then that might not make sense, and it may take more effort, not just to get the things, but to get things put away in a good way, just like with your laundry baskets being so close to the washer and dryer, there's not a lot that can prevent that. So I look at that even in my kitchen with organizing. Whatever idea I had when I moved in, it might change a year later where I think, "Why am I walking this far to get the knives?" Or, "Why am I going this far from the dishwasher to put things away?" And it'll just help things stay more organized if your system is as streamlined or as practical as could be. And, just whatever kinda trips you up during the day or slows you down or just doesn't make sense. For the most part, it probably does make sense. But if you're always going by things in a drawer to get the one thing, and then you realize, "I really never use these other things. Do I really need them?" Then you start to let go of maybe half of what's in that drawer, so it's easier to get in and get out.
The
But
junk drawer, the junk
mhm,
drawer. All I could think about. So, our junk drawer has a ton of wires, and so I take away the wires and I put them somewhere else, and somehow they always end up there because that's where people are used to putting their wires.
mhm.
And it gets in your way of opening the drawer, closing the drawer,
Yeah,
and you can't even use the drawer because it's full.
yeah.
But if it's really a reprogramming.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. When you have different people doing it a different way, it
Yeah.
it can be really chaotic. And one thing we didn't my husband and I didn't do this at the very beginning of our marriage, but when we realized, every time you come home, you put the keys in this one place. Used to be a hook. Now we have a drawer. At one house, it was a bowl. We had our key bowl. Now it's the key drawer. But once you have that habit, and if everyone in the family knows it, and nothing else is in there, like you said, sometimes other things are in there. It's like, why is this in here? I can't find my keys. Like let's stick to the system. But
Yeah.
it just makes things go more orderly, because that's why we organize, is because things aren't going smoothly or they're not functioning as well.
Yeah. Talking about this made me realize that instead of fighting the wires and taking them away, maybe I
Mhm.
should take away everything else and leave the stuff that people
Have
are
that be
constantly
that
putting
have
in.
have that be that drawer, and you put your things somewhere else.
Right.
And
Because,
if they're using them often enough and they're able to get them. Yeah, that's
yeah.
one of my
Yeah.
things I do need to get rid of, is all the charging cables or things that we don't use as much. I've done things like put them in a Ziploc and, so they're easier to take out, but there's so many because of technology changing that we haven't
Right.
used in a long time that I just need to donate or get rid of somehow.
Yeah. Totally. Totally. There's this one thing that I once saw on Instagram, maybe like 7 years ago or something. And it was this lady who said, like, she showed putting her stuff down and then putting it away. And she just said over and over again, "Don't put it down, put it away."
Mhm.
And she
Yeah.
showed her purse like at the table and then no on the hook. And then don't put it down, put it away. And she did it with a book.
Yeah.
And then don't put it down, put it away. And it just stuck in my head because she said it so many times with the visuals of
Yeah.
each thing, how she did the natural move is just throw it on the table or put it on the
Yeah.
counter. But then the next like millisecond of just putting it on the hook or putting it in its place.
Yeah.
So I've been doing that more and more subconsciously because I watched that one reel and
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
so good. I'm like, wow, I wish
Yeah.
I could find her again and give her all the
Yeah.
credit.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So that yeah, you can thank her for that. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I was just thinking too about women with ADHD. A lot of times, if you have your keys or your glasses or your purse or whatever, wherever you're gonna put that away when you walk in the house, you just do it really close to the door. But if you're working on something and there's something you need to put away that's in another room, what happens a lot with the working memory problem is you go in the other room and you forget you were cooking dinner. I have all the time. I put things in the toaster. I come back an hour later and think, oh, yeah, or put something in the microwave. I'll forget if I go in the other room. I'll get so distracted or just forget it. And so I usually take something to the edge of the room by that door or to the bottom of the stairs. Like you probably have things if you have stairs, the bottom of the stairs. So the next time you come up, you bring them and put them away. But just to prevent that distraction, that you're still doing it, but not completely because it might interfere with
Right.
actually being
Right.
productive. And yeah, I was also thinking back to marriage is it is good, not just systems that you have, but to understand and respect and be okay with it being different. The different ways people may organize. Because like with my husband, it's the throw things away, it's the clean, it's the quick at the end. With me, if I'm gonna organize a closet, I make a much bigger mess first and then I go down the rabbit hole or what kind of a hyper focus of, well, now that I'm in here, let's reorganize the games so they stack up nice. You do these things to kind of relax you with the hard decisions to be made. And it's nice when your spouse can understand. My daughter talks about this too, because her husband, they're both very, very clean, very, very organized. And their kids just know whenever we finish something, we pick it up and we get things clean before the next thing. They're really good about that. But she said she's more like me, where she's, kind of in this la la land of it's going to take a long time, but there's a method to the madness. And at the end, even the corners are clean because I'm not just going to organize it. I'm going to get out a cloth and scrub the corner. So just respecting that your organizational style, your cleaning style may be a lot different and it may take a different time frame. And for
Right.
some, they do it together. My husband and I are more, I do mine, he does his, and that's okay too. Like we do it together. It makes me a little more anxious to do it together because I think, oh, I can't just, relax and do it,
Right.
feel that way on my own.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are you very much like your husband with things like that?
Are you kidding? We are the exact opposite. When God was laughing, he was laughing at this, okay? Man, we are so different. It's so funny.
Yeah,
I am creative and forgetful and spontaneous and, just go with the flow, whatever. And, like you said, hyper focus. I could sit for hours and do my work. And he's just
yeah.
like, how did you do that? I'm like, I'm not working. I'm having so much fun. Like, he doesn't get it. And then, he's so routined, so like a clock. He knows time in his head without looking, right? Like
Yeah.
sometimes I'll play this game like, "What time is it? Don't look." And he'll tell me to the minute and he knows I don't know how he knows. He hasn't looked at a
That's
clock for 2.5
that's so
hours.
funny. That's like perfect pitch with a note, but he has the perfect time to the minute.
Exactly, exactly, and also he has that computerized brain thing when he does
Mhm.
shopping. He'll go and he'll tell you how much is going to come out before she even says it, like,
Oh,
before
wow.
he even goes through,
Yeah.
and he'll be like, "I don't know, I'm looking at the thing going, this probably is gonna cost 347 around that," and then it rings up like 347.5 or, like, ridiculous. And it really shows, like, when I was going out, I was available and somebody said, "Oh, I have this guy for you." So, he went to the same school as my brother. So,
Mhm.
my parents called my brother and like, "You know this guy?" Because like, I don't know, we wanted to make sure it was like a nice guy. And my brother just described him as like, "Oh, he's a walking computer."
Oh, yeah.
And it is so true. He knows everything. His brain is so filled with information. People will call him to ask him what's the source for this, and he'll tell you the exact verse,
Mm.
where to find it, how to see,
Yeah.
whatever. It's like in this book, it's on this page. And, if you
Yeah.
look
Yeah, he
somewhere
knows
else,
exactly.
it's, a different version. I don't know. So smart. But like style wise, he is so good at doing things repeatedly, doing the
Mhm,
dishes,
mhm,
doing the laundry, cleaning up, doing the thing, whatever.
mhm.
And he's also like, his love language is acts of service.
Yeah.
So, like people say, don't say you're helping your wife. And, it's not nice anymore to say it this way, but like, this is the way he loves me, is by doing things.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
it's not because, I mean, obviously we could say he's doing it because it's his house and he wants it clean too, but he
Mhm,
really is using it as his way of showing love. And so he's like, I
mhm,
cleaned the dishes for you. And so
mhm.
you automatically want to be like, for me, you clean the dishes for everyone. It
Yeah.
just needs to be
No.
done. I
Yeah.
see what he's saying. I have learned to pick up on that language where, yeah, his love language is acts of service. So he's going to
Mhm,
use any way of service to
mhm.
connect back to showing love.
Yeah, and even if he does love it clean, because I 'cause I'm more like he is with that, where I love walking in my house and seeing it all clean. So when I'm cleaning it, I'm thinking, "When my daughter gets home from work, she'll be so happy to see this clean." Whether she is or not, I'm imagining the joy it gives me is gonna give her or my husband or anyone else, so you are doing it with them in mind, not
Yeah,
doing it so they don't have to, and doing
right.
it so they enjoy it, so I get
Exactly.
that.
Exactly. And it makes me feel very taken care of and very loved. And then I
Mhm.
learned that my love language is words of affirmation.
Mm.
So I can use my words to appreciate what he has done and to really give it that space. So if
Yeah.
maybe in the past he would say, "Oh, I did the laundry for you." And I would say, "For me, what does it matter? You're doing the laundry for it's like
Mhm.
that my words are so powerful. And,
Mhm.
if I could switch it and be like, "Thank you so much. I feel so cared for. I love that you take the
Mhm.
time. You could have done any other thing, but
Mhm.
you're so routined about it. You take care of me every single day. You do the
Yeah.
laundry and whatever." So I'm using my superpower to
Yeah.
support his superpower. And that's when it starts to work really well.
Mhm.
It's easier for him to remember that things have to be done every day, but it's
Yeah.
easier for me to get into that hyper focused rhythm that I have like once a month where I'm like, I'm
Mhm.
in the mood for, and then
Mhm.
it's like getting all the winter out, putting all the summer
Yeah.
in, going through the corners, cleaning up really
Y
well, and
yeah.
then organizing it by color. I can do
Mhm.
that, but
Yeah,
not
yeah.
every day
Yeah,
and not
yeah.
all the time.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and it's good too, you brought up something that and it doesn't sound like your husband has a problem with it, but me being the service, I'm doing this because I know it'll make you happy. One of my daughters used to do that. If I went on a trip without my husband or the kids, when I'd come back, I'd see the lines of the vacuum and, and the carpet in the living room because she'd think, "Mom's coming, everyone come clean." They were giving me that gift of walking in. But for me being that way early in our marriage when my kids were too little to do that, I remember coming back from a trip and my husband was sitting on the couch with his brother and the kids and they were playing and there were toys around and I thought, "You knew I was coming home right now. I've been gone a week and it's not clean so I could walk in and have that gift," because that's what I would give, and that taught me in that moment, that's not his way of showing love to you,
Right.
and that's okay. Just because it's yours doesn't mean that if it's not clean, he didn't love you,
Right.
but
But
he
also,
wasn't
I
caring for you.
think it's, we have to remember also a lot of times the programming in our brains are so different, right? The
Yeah,
the
yeah, for
things we
sure.
heard our mothers say, you know,
Mhm.
I know a lot of mothers who are cleaning and organizing and doing and doing that, but the things they're saying is nobody is helping around here. I'm doing it all myself, and you guys are
Mhm.
so selfish and blah blah blah. So what happens is you start seeing the teenagers that are growing up and they're doing it with this resentful energy, like nobody's
Mhm.
helping around here. I'm the only one doing it. It's like, oh,
Mhm.
it's just copy paste of what you've heard. So it
Yeah.
takes a lot of intentionality to own and be like,
Yeah.
wait, I don't want to sound like that. I want to be really happy
Yeah.
doing it for me and for the people I love,
Yeah.
not because I have to, not because nobody, people are
Right.
mean.
And creating an environment that if they are helping, it's positive. I mean, we used to have our kids do something to clean on Saturday mornings, but we put on, back then the CDs, we put on a soundtrack from The Parent Trap or something and play the music, and everyone would grab a spray bottle, and we'd all be working to the music, and it made it a happy memory. Now, if we hear any of those songs, we think, remember when we used to clean on Saturdays, instead of we were saying, you guys never clean, so now you have to clean now. They
Right.
were happy about it. And my husband also used to quote, I don't know who the quote is, but he would teach them because he loves to work. And I do too. I think we probably all love to be productive, but he would tell them work is the source of happiness, prosperity, and self esteem. And so if you do something, like we kind of show, look, I just cleaned the windows or something, it's something to be proud of, or whether anybody's there to see it or not. And I do see that in my kids. They have different levels of how much they like to clean or how often, but they do remember that, yeah, I do feel good because I did something. I didn't do it because there was somebody telling me you have to do it, but it can actually produce good feelings to have
Right.
things be nice and clean and organized and that sort
Yeah,
of thing.
I think, for me, I grew up that the atmosphere is more important than the physical cleanliness. And my mother always said, like, your husband wants to walk in to see a happy wife
Mm,
and not a clean house with a miserable
yeah.
wife. And so, like, it was either or in my mind because that's how she was saying it. Like, she made this very clear. There was a
Yeah.
choice. You had to either
Yeah.
be in a clean house or and be
Yeah.
miserable, or
Yeah.
be, beautifully dressed and happy to see him, but like the house is a mess. And it's when I started learning coaching, and I was like, oh, you can have this and that. Look at that.
Yeah, 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 you can be happy and have that.
Yeah, and like you said, I like walking into a clean house. I think all of us do, and a lot of the
Mhm,
women that I know, we have Pinterest boards. They're all this beautiful, gorgeous, like,
mhm.
you know,
Yeah.
impossible thing to attain.
Minimalist house with nothing in it.
Exactly. It's like all of our Pinterest boards are all minimalist, gorgeous, like
Yeah,
this very nice pale, turquoise background with like
yeah,
some plants and a little bit of wood,
yeah,
whatever. And it's like I'm never getting there. There's no way. This is
yeah,
this is like,
yeah, 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 I don't know if you've heard that saying, it's something like keeping the house clean while the kids are still growing is like shoveling the walk while it's still snowing. It's like the snow's gonna keep coming down and your job will never be done, and understanding that gives you a little bit of a break, like until they go to sleep. It's funny too because the kids would go to bed, and when they were younger, I'd start vacuuming, and I would vacuum in their rooms, and people would say, "You're vacuuming while they're falling asleep," and I thought they're used to it. I never had a quiet home for my babies taking naps. I was
right.
just keep the work done, but I'd be in their bedroom while they're falling asleep, just because I wanted to wake up to a clean slate if I could.
For sure. For sure. And, one of my kids said, in my house, we're going to wash the floors every single morning before we leave the house. So that when we come home, the house is clean. I'm like, go for it. I thought I
Mhm.
was going to do the same thing. Like, I
Yeah,
really like that there's something nice about washing floors and while everybody is
yeah,
leaving to school, but there is no way,
yeah,
no
yeah,
way that
yeah,
that's
yeah,
happening. And you know why? Because I'm their anchor. So when I leave with the youngest ones to go out at 7:30, that's when they all get their act together to leave also and get to school by
yeah.
8. So if I waited for them to
Mhm.
leave, they would never leave.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They do it because 'cause you're gone and you're not gonna do it for them, or
Yeah. So I found that my kids sort of like slow themselves down because they want my attention of like, okay, come on, go, this, that. Did you take your food? Did you da da da? But if I'm not
Mhm,
there, then they have to just get their stuff and go.
mhm,
And it works so
mhm.
much better. So
Yeah,
ever since last year, I started doing that. I'm like, okay, bye guys, I'm out. And I'm in
yeah,
charge of the two youngest ones and we're out of here. And
yeah,
everybody else just sort of like work themselves out. By the time I get
yeah,
back, the house is
yeah.
empty.
They've gone. They've made it out without you telling them you've gotta go. I don't know, is it
Yeah.
your daughter that's the oldest that's gone to college? That's
Yeah, so
left?
she hasn't gone to college. She went to do community service. So here
Oh,
the girls can choose if they want to go to the army or do
oh,
service
okay.
instead.
Oh, okay.
And so she's doing that, and she's also in, like, a seminary, like, a
Oh, cool.
learning program. Yeah,
Yeah. I was
so
just curious if you saw anything different with her gone, because my youngest one, he was the one where I just couldn't hound him about his room. I couldn't say, "You really need to clean up," I just had to just go. And then every once in a while, kinda like me, and he does have ADHD, but every once in a while on a Saturday, he'd clean his room for 4 hours and, get it all right. But it was funny when he went to college, he said, "Oh, mom, now I know why you'd say, put your plate in the sink, don't just leave it on the table or whatever. My roommates do that, and I'm the clean one." And he actually went and found one of those robo vacuums at the thrift store because he was tired of vacuuming all the time. And he even told me, he said, "I'm still the one who does it." But what's funny is he comes home and he's not that person when he's home, kind of like
right.
when you were saying, when he's there. I went up, this is the room that he was in when he was here at Christmas time. And every time I came in, just all his clothes everywhere. But when he gets back to college, he'll be the clean one in his room. And, he said, "I know
Yeah,
no one else is going to take out the trash but me. It doesn't seem to matter to the other one," that kind of thing. And I think you have that standard that you enjoyed. And I think he does love to have some order when it comes in spurts. But it's just funny that when he came home, I thought, "Where's this always cleaning the kitchen that I hear about?" It's not happening
yeah.
when you're here.
We all revert back to ourselves when we go back to different locations, right?
That's
So,
true.
you know, if you ever get together with your siblings, does it, like, suddenly all fall back into, "Oh, you're the
Yeah,
oldest, I'm the youngest. You're the
yeah,
troublemaker," or whatever. It's like, why do we do that? We're all
yeah.
adults, right?
Or
It's like,
the
doesn't make any
humor
sense.
that you enjoy with them is different than, what you
Yeah,
would with other people, and that
yeah.
sort of thing.
Yeah, and you know what? It's a nice thing to have a place where you don't have to feel like it's all on you. I
Mhm.
find a lot of times I'll sort of like make myself feel better about it when my kids come home and then like they walk in the door and they start, you don't know, right? And everything starts to spill out because they were
Yeah.
holding it in
Oh, yeah,
all day.
100%. Yeah, yeah.
And so I feel like, oh, this is such good news. It means you feel comfortable at home to be
Mhm,
yourself and to
mhm,
really let it out. And so, like, the same thing, like, sometimes you don't have to be the clean one, and it's
mhm.
okay, and it doesn't mean anything about you, it just means that you feel safe enough to just, blah,
Oh,
sort of.
true. That's true.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have to assume that mode.
Yeah, I like what you said about, we all like organized, we all liked clean, but there's something about this perfectionism thing. It's like all or
Mhm.
nothing. It's either my
Yeah.
house is Pinterest or it's like that messiest home on planet
Yeah.
Earth.
You know?
And it's either I'm going to clean it all up or not
Yeah.
even bother. Right. And
Mhm.
like the the medicine to that is just pick up the trash. Just, like, take a bag
Yeah.
and start to pick up trash because 'cause you'll start to slowly just see things improve, even if
Mhm.
it's not
Mhm.
perfect, at least you're not in a dump.
Yeah, and there's always this tipping point too, because you can clean your closet and maintain that. But if something happens, you're sick for a couple days, or who knows, you just don't have as much time, you're celebrating the holidays or whatever, and you start to throw things on this chair or whatever it is, it's just like you said, it goes from looking really good to just being a disaster and taking forever. One day it took me a whole day just to fold the clothes and not even just reorganize. It was just actually like catching up. And it had been a whole month since I gone on a trip and didn't unpack, all these things. And you think, it's kind of like when you're filling up water and it gets to that point and then it really floods. It's like, where's that point? Because each system that you create also has a maintaining system. And if you're
Mm,
not maintaining it, it can slide away, which happens. And we have to be okay with that, can happen sometimes. But sometimes just that tiny effort, like you said, putting something all the way away, putting it on its hanger or in the dirty clothes instead of just in the I don't have time to put it somewhere
right.
spot. It really just kind of takes a life of its own to disorder and all that.
Yeah. Yeah, so let's come up with a couple of tips so that the listeners are like, "Yeah, that's something I'm going to try," or, "That's something that I should really think
Yeah.
about."
I would think whatever it is, let's say you don't think, just one part of your house, your kitchen, your laundry closet, whatever it is, and you think, I don't have a good system for that, notice what your system is to begin with. And if there's some way just to tweak that to make it workable, and if not, come up with a new system. So just define your system, simplify what you have to manage if you can, whether it's clothes, dishes, and maybe give yourself permission to do something different, like not wash things as often or use paper plates at times, or, things that you need to when it's busier. Because I've tried to have some standard, like you said, the Pinterest things, like, oh, we have to have use nice dishes for this, and everyone comes, and for 2 days, your kitchen's a disaster, and you think, "Maybe we shouldn't have done that." But
Yeah.
yeah, I think just kind of observing if you can just change the way you're doing something a little bit, or if it needs an overhaul, and then making it manageable to maintain. I don't know if that's specific enough, but it really depends
Yeah, I
on what
think
you're doing.
something you said made me think about, if you're dumping papers in the same corner, just put a basket there.
Mhm,
If you're dumping clothes in the same chair, put a basket like right by the chair and
mhm.
have this basket of things I'm going to get to, but at least
Yeah.
it's all contained or it's sort of like this is where
Mhm,
it goes. So then it's still a one step thing, right? So
mhm.
like
Yeah,
when you were talking about hanging your clothes, it's like, of course, there's going to be times when you don't feel like hanging your clothes, and then you're going to
mhm,
fall back. And the system, if it's not working for you, it's not working for you.
mhm,
Like, what
mhm.
if you could just have a drawer system instead? We just dump it all
Mhm.
and
Yeah,
go
yeah,
through, go
yeah,
through it.
yeah, yeah, and even just with the paperwork, what's really breaking the system, and if putting it all in one pile, then later you have to go through that pile, but you have a pile of junk mail that you can't really look at yet, or you're not sure what's in it, but the other one you need to save. And we were getting so many credit card offers, and I have a shredder, and I would wanna open them and shred them, but you don't always have time to do all that, and they put hard papers in there so it could break your shredder if you don't open it. They do all these crazy things. And finally, one day, I just thought, "Okay, this isn't working well. Is there a way to prevent this credit card mail from coming?" And it took a while, but I had to go, read a few articles, go online, fill something out, actually mail it with a stamp for me and my husband. And it took a few months, but it's dropped dramatically. So sometimes if your system's just really tipping over and you think, is there a lifeline? Is there something I can do to make this not so hard to manage?
Yeah.
Then, sometimes it takes an hour or something to do something different to make that happen. But
Right. It's a good investment. Take the hour. I
mhm,
I was at a networking event and I met a woman who's an organizer. And
mhm,
she said, "I want to teach you guys one thing. Don't take anything home." And I was like,
mm,
"What? I come to the networking events to get free pens. Are you kidding me?" Right?
yeah,
Like this is the thing I live for is
mhm,
all the papers and the giveaways and the cards and the things. And he's like, "No, I just take a picture of the business cards I want and I throw them all out and I leave them here." Right? And I was like, "What?"
mm,
It was the
yeah,
first time I ever heard anybody did that, and it blew
yeah,
my mind. But
yeah,
ever since then, for years already, anytime I go to a networking event, anytime I do anything, instead of taking the card or taking the flyer or taking whatever, I will take a selfie with the person
yeah,
and put it into my phone. "What's your number?" Yeah, boom, that's it.
mhm,
Send them a message,
mhm,
now we're friends. And if it's worth it enough, like if there was a person you met that you really wanna keep in touch with, it is going to be so much more helpful if they're on in your phone than
mhm.
if that you have their card somewhere in your house.
Yeah, yeah, that gets put in the key drawer or wherever else and makes somebody else not be able to find their thing, and then you lose it,
Exactly.
and
It was just causing clutter, and then you feel bad throwing it out because, oh, come on, you don't throw out people's
mhm.
business cards, it's their names and stuff.
I know, they paid for
It's
that.
it's their identity. It's we get all, like,
Yeah, yeah.
all personal. Okay,
Mhm.
this has been so fun. I just looked at the clock, went, "How did the time fly?"
I know, I know.
Wow.
It
Tell everybody where they can find you, how they can work with you.
So I do have a website, it's reneeallen.com, but it has a dash in between Renee Allen, renee-allen.com. I also am on Instagram, not very big presence, but on social media, Inspiring Women ADHD .com, and that's what my podcast is called, Inspiring Women with ADHD. I hope to inspire them, but they inspire me too. It's helpful to see people in a similar boat or in, experiencing similar things because in some ways you can talk to people and think, "Oh, we all do this. Isn't even that big of a challenge." And a lot of times you find out, no, not everyone faces these challenges, and it's really encouraging and supporting to come together with other women who are working through the same kind of challenges as you are in life. So,
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you for coming and for sharing. It's been amazing. Thank you for listening. And don't forget to be connected for real.